designate where my property is, or 5 feet out in the water. Now, Bob said, we're not going to put more ground out there to fill it in, but I'm going to tell you, you have an easement and your easement is half in the water. Now, how are you going to maintain and utilize that easement without going on my private property? And that goes all around our pond. So I believe you now have a legal issue. If you want to do anything on that pond, how do you get on people's property? What else do I have here? Yes, second issue. I did some research on this and it's recommended there be a no grass cutting zone. Have you guys designated a no cutting zone around any of the ponds in this community?
No.
Part of the study of how erosion is because they bring out heavy equipment there and they break the soil and the sand up and it moves. And I think that that's something that has been neglected and should be done. There should be a no cut there. Continue to put the weight and shift the sand downhill. As I've stated, I've talked to a number of people and I've gotten nothing to show for it. I am now very frustrated. 5 years of patience is worn very thin. I figure I have 2 options left in my tank. One is to go directly to the CDD and complain that the board is, this group is not doing their job properly and see if the CDD wants to try to get involved with it. If not, go to the South Florida Water Management District, upon which Mr. Gifford said that could cost people a lot of money. But I am not above doing that at this point. If my pond is not getting taken care of, I will go to the South Florida Water Management District and I will request they send a letter to the CDD, much like they did with the boardwalk that we have in the preserve. And bingo, stuff happened real quick. Golf carts got stopped immediately. I am very serious about this pond being taken care of, and I have 5 years of frustration. So I don't think you can say that this is just something that's come out of the clear blue and Joe Schofield is just mad all of a sudden. That's not the truth. I appreciate your input. I appreciate your help, and I hope you will take action in a positive way. And I can just go home and sleep.
That's, I don't know how do we, what?
Can I make just a couple comments first?
Yeah, I would just, one
Yeah.
thing is, and then I know both of you can make a comment. We did, Tetra Tech did the study of prioritization. We did not do it within the ponds group. That's number one. And the list, and you know the list and you know how that process was done. That was done by an engineer, not residents, because every resident thinks their pond's the worst. That's why we do it with an outside engineering firm first. The other thing is, we don't have an unlimited budget. And instead of, doing a bond or something like that, we had the downspout initiative. When that ended last year, we took that money and put it towards pond bank restoration. And we had a list by prioritization from Tetra Tech that we went through, starting at the top. Pond 36 was deemed as the worst from the engineering firm, and that's why that pond was selected first. Okay.
Doug, can I comment on that for a moment?
Well, you have your
Wait,
5
okay.
minutes.
Okay, now, because Lynn it also lives on that same. pond.
Right. Yeah, I'm 2 doors down from Joe, and as he said, he had talked. But I just want to clarify a couple things. First, and I believe it was 4 years ago, maybe time gets foggy, but we had when this group was talking about planting littorals around various ponds. Ponds 47 was one of the top 3 that was selected at that time. At that time, Mark Eversman was involved with, that was before he went, got promoted, I guess. But anyway, so we had littorals planted around Pond 47. And within, and I witnessed, and I don't know what, there could have been a couple reasons why they all died. I agree with Joe. Our pond is probably one of the worst as far as there's no littorals on it. You go to pond 48, which is right next to us, it looks healthy and great. But anyway, so we had littorals planted, and I forget, whatever, it was set with littoral planting priority by this group. And for whatever reason, within maybe 2 months or so, essentially all of them were gone. And now I did witness, on my end of the pond, I did witness one morning, I'm sitting out there drinking my coffee, and at that time we had fair amount of grass carp in our pond. And they were eating them. They were literally pulling them out. They were this far from the shore, pulling these suckers out. And I mentioned that, I know, to our group here a couple times. And that was one of the reasons. I also have a suspicion that there may have been, by our vendor who cares for the pond, there may have been an overspring or something. And that could have, and these are young, more sensitive and whatever, and that may have done it. Whatever happened, that planting was negated.
Didn't take.
And didn't take. And so there was an attempt. And then fast forward to what Doug just had mentioned, when Tetra Tech was brought in as the outside vendor to look at all our ponds. And I was not real vocal, but I, at that time, when the priorities came out, I put in that pond 47 should be somewhere, at least in the top 5, because it's, to be honest, I haven't gone around the whole community like Jim has looked at all the ponds in old and new and everything, I have not. I'm sort of in my area and in New Pelican, whatever. So, but when that list came out, and pond 47 was in the I don't know, number 3.
It's about within the top 5.
Yeah, it was in the top 5, and to
Right.
me that was
Well,
okay at the time.
47 and 48 were within the top 5.
Yeah. So anyway, so to me that it's moving forward, and so then so it's not that nothing has been done. Some things were done, and in the restoration or whatever for the erosion by on that list that as was done on pond 36. I think when money's available and we are on that list, things will be done, but it's moving slower than Joe would like to see it, and personally myself, because compared to the other ponds, there's no littorals, and this
Mine
group,
has no littorals either.
yeah, and so with the importance of littorals, we all know. I mean, that's one of the primary focuses that have been on in this group. So anyway, so I just want to say things have been done. A major thing with planting littorals, it didn't take for whatever reason, and that should be reconsidered. But if they're going to do restoration of the banks, do you wait to do that first and do another littoral planting and all that? So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
So we did do some littoral plantings on some ponds that did not have bank erosion. Our feeling was that to spend money planting littorals on a pond that is going to have the banks rebuilt would completely be killing it. So there was no sense throwing money away. We, like Doug mentioned, we do have a budget. We are trying to stay within the budget very much. We don't have a wish list. Otherwise we would just go and, take care of a lot of these. The contractors would love to have a contract to do 6 or 8 ponds. That's their livelihood. We did pick the one that was rated number 1. We did it. It was a learning curve. We are looking at the second pond, which is another big one. Budget-wise, it probably won't work the way we envision. So there's a matter of finding some smaller ponds so we can live within our budget constraints on 47 may get moved up based on its position, and a one in front of it is not practical for us budget-wise to do. But we did have Tetra Tech, so there is no, you know, an engineering firm went over their findings and they prioritized it. This has been shared, Joe. I know it's frustrating. It is on the near-term list. Again, meeting budgets, it's very hard to turn around and say, we're going to do yours next year. You know, we're working to get it done as soon as possible.
Put my cards on the table. They're all talking about having an engineering firm go out and do some work and prioritize it.
That was already done.
3 damn years before that happened. What happened in the 3 years? Nothing.
Okay, well,
You
they
had
did this,
money
they
back
did this
then.
2 years ago.
Those littorals.
We
you
didn't
put
have
in
money then.
Didn't last 2 months.
Right.
They were washing out. I
Hey,
never saw.
we gotta get off this
anything.
topic.
I
Okay,
never
they-
saw.
We tried,
anything.
they tried to plant it. They did the right thing as far as trying to plant littorals on a pond that was missing. It did not work for, you know, whatever the reason is.
They watched
We
out.
are going to be readdressing it. We're not planting littorals until after we redo the bank. But it is on our short list. You know, when we have a firm date or time or season, I will be happy to share it with you. But, you know, until then, that's why I would say that, you know, it's within the next couple of years, because I can't commit to this year or next year. Things are flexible, trying to get the budget to get as much done as we can.
You have a reserve fund. You ought to dip into it and do something. My comments.
We don't
started
have a reserve.
Years before you had your engineering study and you didn't do anything about it. You told me, and I have the emails, you said there's no problem with that pond.
Right.
That was not true at all.
Right.
There was a problem with
Okay.
that.
Let me have just a couple. First and foremost, the absence of littorals in what I will call New Pelican is a known issue. We don't know what caused it, but it is a known issue.
I could give you a good reason.
Well, Joe,
No, I really have a good.
Joe,
okay.
Reasons, please.
it would be,
Whether it was lack of diligence on our part watching the supplier, whether it was just the criteria that Lennar had established, because we just rolled over that company to us. But for whatever reason, Old Pelican looks very, very good. And New Pelican has been suffering since day one. Now, recognizing that, some steps have been taken, some worked, some didn't. Some have been improved, some haven't. We are moving forward. Your pond is a failure, okay? It tried, it didn't work. I applaud the group, and specifically Jim, for listening to inputs, though not all of them, and yours was one of the more vociferous. We don't get a lot of input about this. And the pond group itself went out and said, oh, we got a problem. And they came up with a list. And in the wisdom of this group, they said, well, you know, we have a list. Jim put some priorities, but we don't want to have that burden. Let's get the engineer to take that list and review it and either confirm what we're looking for or give us a different priority. And that was done. And based on that list, regardless of how old the complaint was, the most severe issue was treated first. And then it's going to happen that way continuing on. There's merit to your case that reserves are available, and I would submit, not going to speak for Peggy, but they are available if it's determined this rises to the level that we want to spend it, and we may. But anyway, from moving forward from today, it is an absolute fact in Pelican, without littorals, there is erosion, period. We all know it. We want to put littorals in. It is also a fact that we have to have low water, which we haven't had in a while, so that we can get in there and make the repairs. That's why 36 took so long. So whatever the determining ponds are for the future, they'll be addressed one at a time, even if we have to pump them now. So, but no one is saying pond 47 isn't a problem. Everyone is agreeing with that. The issue then becomes, is it the top priority? From a resident complaint point of view, it is absolutely the top. From the engineering and the other,
It's
and then
not,
there is a budgetary consideration. That we could stay within, but no one is telling you it's not going. It's
Okay.
necessary.
I know nobody's telling me that, but I'm telling you guys, you failed.
Go.
3
go. You
Okay,
had 5 minutes. You had your 5 minutes for public comment. We can't take this whole meeting to do this one
Fine,
thing.
I'm going to go to South Florida Water Management District and let them do what they do, and I hope you can deal with it.
you do what you gotta do.
So,
It's on the list.
Thank-
But 5 years is way too long, and telling me a couple more years is even worse.
Do you want us
I
to,
think so.
Okay,
I appreciate your time,
thank you, Jim.
and I do appreciate the good work you have done, but this is extremely disappointing.
Well, let me ask you one question. Is the only thing that'll stop you is if they were gonna do that next, because that ain't gonna happen. You've already got the affirmation that's gonna be done. What more do you want?
I had a commitment from the CDD manager that they were going to do it this coming year, but then I got something that said,
Who gave you that?
that was stated at the PPAC meeting. If you go back and look at.
Feedback sheet's different than CDD manager.
I'm sorry, it was a CD manager, the general manager of the CDD who sits in at the PPAC meeting, who made the.
Who was it, you know?
It was,
I don't ever remember that. I'm just being honest.
go
I
back.
don't remember.
Well,
They were
I don't know
never
how
when they
to
were
forget.
talking.
Becky wasn't there, and I don't think you were there either at the meeting. Neither
Well,
was
the only reason I asked, I'm not trying to challenge you, I
It
never
was-
heard of that.
What's their names?
Chelsea, Laura,
It was, the two of them were there, and I think it was one of the two who made that statement, that it was on the list, and then.
well, it's on the
It was
list.
the coming year. They said within the coming year.
Well, that's probably still accurate, but.
But no, then I got a note that said it is, and I got a note from Peggy to thank me for my diligence and being concerned about the pond, which.
It isn't personal, and I'm not taking it personal. You gotta do what you gotta do. I understand that. But to say you're being ignored is not accurate.
My comments were 3 years before you did your engineering study. There was time to do it. There was money to do it. The reason the plans came out, and I went out and I looked
Joe,
at them.
we gotta.
Doug, please give me
Okay.
1 minute. And
I gave you 10.
You're having a discussion. I'd like to be part of the discussion. We have a wind that comes from the east to the west. The waves always do that. Those littorals that were planted washed out. I went and replanted them all. I planted God knows how many of them, and they washed out within 2 days again. There were no fish there pulling them out. They were floating right there where they had been planted.
Oh, Joe,
Maybe the wrong
Okay.
thing's planted, and maybe we'll learn and put something different.
But-
Okay, we hear you, but
It-
don't walk out thinking you're being ignored. You're not.
Maybe I'll just stay and listen to the rest of the meeting.
You're not being ignored. That's all I'm.
so naturally, what I would do is, once we have a date for these, for the next one, I will definitely share it with you, just so you know there is work being done, it is progressing, and if there's something I can share with a date or a timeline, I would be more than happy to do that.
There's nothing.
I know it's important.
Everything's public.
Everything's public. Okay,
Good.
All right. The next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. They are here and they are also on the website. Can I have a motion from someone to approve that? Okay.
Minutes?
I will second.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Okay. So the minutes for the meeting have been approved. I will sign them and make sure I give them to you, Daniel, before you leave.
Okay.
The next thing on the agenda is the financial. You want to put that up there?
We now have September, don't we? Okay,
Sir,
that's the August. We now have September, don't we?
it's not in the report. I don't have it.
No, this is what Laura loaded, which was last week. That she loaded into the menu. I have the new ones.
So do I. That's why.
I have
It's gonna
them.
be
Yeah.
current.
But these are the ones when the week before the meeting were available, and that's what Laura had.
Okay.
It's not that much different.
They're still favorable.
This is showing there's about $137,000 in the hole over the budget. The 100,000 was already there in the 904 from the reserve, the ponds reserve. The 137 is over the budget, over the 904. Okay, it's a little less than that in the new data, the one you're looking at, it's 10 something, but it's still $100,000. I do have a list of what some of those things were. Well, let's see if I. just-
Well, but the total number, if you take the ops, you don't have the capital, you're under budget.
Right, but the capital was never assigned. I'm just saying that there's things that we did, like the fountains we picked up. And the fix the fountains, entry fountains and decommission the ones out front. And the maintenance, that was all picked up with no budget line item, was almost $32,000 that we spent this year on the fountains.
Okay, it
Okay,
was a great job.
well, I have a list, anyone can get a copy of it, but basically, if you look at that list, there was $268,000 worth of stuff that hit.
Previously, we didn't have capital.
Well, quite a bit of it was work that was done last year and not billed, or work that spilled over to the year. Which is, but the money was in reserves, the ponds reserves, but all that is it should have been spent the prior year. So,
But the good news is, unaudited subject to audit, we're still positive as we start our new year.
right, but, I've talked to Ed, about some of this stuff, because he's the PPAC, from a finance standpoint, so he knows about the thing, and his main concern, that we have the money for next year. And if you look at the list that cost us to be off, those are one-time, things that,
Non-recurring.
non-reoccurring things that hit our budget. Okay? So that's what I got to say about that.
So Daniel, I think from the next time that we see this monthly document, it will no longer have those 4 capital items. Going in the future, everything is going to be up in the L&M.
Okay.
That was a decision feedback made, and I think we're all in agreement. So this will be the last time you'll see those capital.
Okay. And we didn't spend it, we were advised not to spend the capital at the bottom part of the capital. Okay, we can go to the next. I didn't know we had to do this, but we do, I guess. We need to, by the way, Deb, you got some paper signed. We need to select any nominations to be president of the group. We need to have, yeah, chairman. Is there any nominations for anyone? Want to nominate someone?
I'm gonna nominate Doug.
Okay.
I second that nomination.
All in favor?
Thank you, Jim. I can do the same. Jim,
Why I spoke first.
yeah, the vice chair, I nominate Jim. Do I have a second? Oh, I was vocal. That vote wasn't as vocal. Okay, this is just there, and Joe, if you go to the website, you can download the entire report of Tetra Tech, and there's actually a page or two. It's not just a picture of the pond, it's also words on it. But it's in the agenda. We aren't going to cover I don't know how many pages it is, 60 or so pages,
Yeah.
but it's agenda item just so people have the formal document. The other thing here on the agenda would be number C, and we do need to vote on this. Number C is the GIS system. In the past, we have paid, the Ponds Group has paid for all of the GIS. From this year, it's split across the 3 subgroups. Ours is the largest, it's 30,000. This contract is only for our portion, or it might be for all 3 that's merged together at the district level. But from a Ponds Group, if you look at our budget, we're spending $30,000 next year from Passarella for the GIS system. Okay, do I have a recommendation on that, or to go forward with the continue to fund the GIS system?
Is this the same vendor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this covers additional things, or is this just for maintenance of the status quo?
All of that.
It's for
Yeah,
maintenance
the-
and a certain percentage. I guess it's all how many hours.
The major part of it is hours for additional new requests to add new data. The major part of our 30K is, it's like 10K for the
And we
ongoing.
are not in ponds really adding a lot,
No,
but
Right.
all of,
Right.
PPAC is.
Right. I know there's a lot of good functionality. I know we're just put in a request.
We're doing safety and security.
Right.
They've got all the street lights, they've got all the signs. And the budget is just split up between the three subcommittee groups.
And
Okay.
the recurring expense is not that much.
no. Do I have a motion to accept the 30K?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
And do I have a vote now?
Aye.
4-0. Hopefully Daniel, yeah, well, I should have, we all should have been happy that Daniel came back. We had welcomed him
Was he gone?
before. What's he going?
Was he gone?
Well, if you didn't notice, then.
Okay,
I noticed he was gone.
okay.
Yeah, Mike would.
I have a copy, that we're into member items and reports, the adjustable weir.
What about the
So
conservation?
we have the conservation maintenance, D.
7D.
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 You didn't want to go over the prioritization? We skipped that one?
I said, well, the prioritizations is down here too.
Okay.
This was just a formal report.
This one
Okay,
shows-
I think Randy added that. That's a $52,000 contract to do the maintenance. That the new year renewal of Solitude.
Just year over year.
Right,
Year
this is
over
the
year.
conservation area for treating of invasive species. Now, this is not, this doesn't include the,
We have a secondary contract just to do the
okay,
trim around the outside, that $4,000. I just got that the other day from Solitude, where I've sent it to Randy. I think the contract I'd like to sign would have that part of it, so that every year we do around the cart path, to trim the things. But
So-
right now, that contract that's in our document is 52,000.
so what
For
are you
solitude,
paying?
it's, according to the agenda item, I know it's a little blurry up there on the screen. It's $53,568 for conservation maintenance services covering the period from 1 November 2024 through October 31st, 2025.
And that's all conservation.
Yes,
Yeah,
And how
Provide
many,
maintenance
how many
services for
acres do
18
we have?
conservation sites in Pelican Preserve.
Okay.
and this is something, we have a new person from Solitude
areas.
17 areas.
yeah.
who's taken this over. And Doug is working with Harold. Harold is going to be interfacing with our contractor and becoming more familiar with the needs the needs of the
Requirements.
community for our conservation areas. Predominantly the one in the town center, like Doug mentioned, there's the pathway, the paved pathway. Last year, we hired somebody to do a hard cut along because everything starts growing in right before the season starts. And it worked well last year and it lasted a good year. It's starting to look to hang over again, but it becomes a safety matter with stuff hanging over too much. And I think it is something that for a yearly thing, we will look to include that in a contract moving forward. So
So kudos to the group, for anyone that doesn't know. WCI did it, Castle did it, KW, we were paying, I think, $120,000 a year for woods and wetlands. And this group, or whatever components of this group, went out and chopped and got that thing cut almost in half.
It was in
So
half.
that was a real attaboy.
And Al Slicker and Al Harris were the two that worked on the bid process.
So-
That brought that in and.
As expensive as it is, it's 50% of what we used to.
yeah. And it has to be done because South Florida will come and tell you, okay, you're in violation. You know, you're not maintaining it and then
Well, no, they come in every year.
right.
It
You
is
know,
not optional.
So, it is something that we have to do, but we are finding a cost-effective means. And also in with the town center one, which is where all the residents interact with, unless you live on the others, trying to have it where it's usable in a safe manner for everybody, we're not saying what the heck's,
But they actually walk through the supplier.
How often do they come?
No,
At least
it's inside, the inside of the conservation areas, they do twice a year. Which is, and then the outside perimeter, they do twice a year on opposite quarters.
right, so it's every quarter
Every
They're
quarter,
coming
they're
in,
they're doing the
trimming one-
out. They don't do any trimming. I think we thought they did trimming, but I think it was Ameriscape or someone else that was doing the trimming around the outside. And we found out that that's why last year was the first year we trimmed the outside. The only thing they're responsible for is to remove invasive plants and trees and
Kill
bushes.
mesolympus,
Yeah.
kill pepper.
Yeah, they're just.
They have a whole list of things they have to kill.
Yeah, and then inside they do it, like once a quarter, they're doing one or the other, either the perimeter or the inside.
So we have Harold who's going to be taking on point for the team to get a good understanding, and he would be able to,
And
moving forward, be able to provide any questions or answer questions.
Matt, like you said, Matt quit from Solitude. He was a conservation specialist for us, the coordinated for Solitude. He's been replaced by Brian, and I won't be able to pronounce his last name. But we met with Brian and Harold. We met last week to transfer ownership of responsibility. And Harold's actually going to ride around with them when they do, and even said he's going to go inside the conservation area. I don't know how easy that is to do.
Make sure Harold's added to our insurance list.
And that is, he's in the group. He's a he's
Okay.
in
Okay, excuse me. I hadn't heard-
he's not on the board.
No,
but
no,
he's in the
no,
group.
I hadn't heard the name, but if he's doing things on your
He-
behalf.
You asked me one time, and I never did get an answer. I don't know the answer about how close you can plant next to the conservation areas. Apparently,
can't.
one of the,
You can't, it's a simple answer.
Well,
I mean, if you have a yard that's right up to one.
You can go up to it, but you can't go up to it.
see,
No, I don't mean in it, but how close to you? I mean, how far back does it have to be?
One word is the edge, whatever that edge is.
I was told,
We had a resident that cleared and planted vegetables in there, and we got fined for that.
yeah, no,
Well, we've had people out on our pond planting stuff on the other side.
yeah, they're supposed to maintain that, the easement. That's what I was told. The same thing that the pond easement has, there's a conservation easement that you should not plant plants in it.
But we don't.
It's not a good.
I don't know how.
We don't know how close that is to the edge. Easy.
Short of a survey, you won't know it, but just don't even give anybody an inch, just say you can't.
Well, I mean, I don't know who asked that
Well,
question.
the one that came, he was the president of the old, PPCA board. I'm trying to think of his name. Rittenberg asked that because he's looking at expanding he was looking at expanding his, patio, and pool. And, that's what he was told. He could not get within the easement, which was 10 foot.
10 foot.
That's what he was told. Okay. Okay,
So of note for this one, just want to point out that there was an increase over the previous contract, totaling about $130 more each month, from last year to this contract, which brings it up from $52,008 to $53,568. Looking for a motion, to renew this contract if you all see fit.
A second.
vote.
Aye.
Okay, and I will get with Randy to look at, going forward, adding that to do the outer around the cart path.
The perimeter area.
It's sort of like an agenda or whatever. Okay, the adjustable weirs. In particular, I don't think we'd have got through the last hurricane as good as we did without the adjustable weirs. If you want to say a little word about 38?
Well, I'm curious if anybody knows how much those in Pelican add to the total flow that we get out of the flowway. No idea.
That would require an engineering study. Somebody's got to do it.
I would imagine they do. That's what,
No, that's,
All,
Sorry.
What,
Tetra Tech should have, because that's part of the requirement,
right,
why they put it in, what gallonage they're expected to handle. And at Weir, at the control level, you should be able to know that. I don't know if we did the calculation when we lowered.
No,
I don't think we did.
we don't have any of the loggers
Because we
on.
don't have, it's not supposed to be lowered. We do that ad hoc when we need it.
because Al had mentioned that I read into her note that the loggers determined how much water was going over the weir.
Mhm.
And Bob had said they don't measure that. They just measure water is going over the weir, not how many inches.
Correct.
Once you
How
press the weir, there's no way to measure it. It's
Yeah. But the only way I measured it is I went out there with a,
stick.
stick, and I'm gonna paint it on the side so we can see it next time.
But that wouldn't tell you the volume of water.
No.
No, it can tell you how many inches we're going over the top of
5
the weir.
inches over.
yeah. it's-
I will say this, we are working on trying to get staff gauges across the board. There's an engineering step and then a dollar sign associated with getting those. We've gotten some quotes back and we're looking to get that installed.
We had it in Pelican one time, we installed stand. Brandon, they weren't everywhere. It was more aligned with what ponds were doing,
Mhm.
the up and down.
It's the up and down. It's not gonna tell you the flow,
No.
what's pushing through, what you have versus what's being pushed to you and then what's being pushed out.
Right.
I won't have that.
So are the weirs in Gateway, do they operate the same as ours?
Yes.
As far as 38 is concerned, I always just say, we've kind of dodged the bullet in all of these because we didn't get that much rain. I don't know what the total rainfall was, but it's nothing like they got north of here where they had terrible flooding. How much? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
that first wave had the only rain for the hurricane, and it came through early, and after that, there was almost
But the
none.
district has the data. That's what they have.
Yeah, and the thing is, it went down pretty quick when we had those, it depends on 4 inches, 3 inches, whatever the exact number was. It was barely going over the notch, you know what
Right.
I'm talking?
Okay.
It was barely going over the notch, and then within the next morning when I went out there, it was already 6 inches lower.
Yeah,
And then it went down to a foot.
It got down to about a foot, even though it
Yep.
was open 2 foot, it never got all the way down. It never was flowing all the way to the bottom, so it didn't totally empty the water, but now they closed it last Friday.
Yep.
And it's still up because everything flows out of that conservation area, it
Everything
just
comes
keeps
out of
it
that
full.
conservation area.
The biggest thing I seen, well, that lady that had flooding in Ian, she called me 7 times. Most of the time she called twice a day. Worried about
Well, yeah,
flooding her.
she called my wife too, because she does my wife's hair, okay?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
she wanted your sandbagging
Yeah.
again, but you told her she didn't need it, and I guess she rested with that.
No, she didn't. She just called back the next day and asked for the same thing.
But I did like the communications in the lead up to the hurricane because we did share that they've all been lowered. So this is something that I think helps
I
the
think it
people
is
who live
good.
in the community
Right, to
to
know.
understand that we are proactively doing something. We're not waiting for, somebody. And I think that also helps keep people from calling various members.
And the catch basin,
you know.
technically, I mean, we're ready.
Yeah.
One item, if I can, I'll take away from this. Doug and I went out through the week. And I gotta tell you, I was shocked by how much water was coming into 38 from the conservation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In a number of individual streams.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on that, and this is a task for Daniel, I've already talked to Chelsea. I want a relook at what we are actually getting from Bridgetown into that conservation versus what the design is.
Mhm.
And the reason we need to understand that is Bridgetown did not have water when we flooded. So they were able to handle their effluent.
Mhm.
And since they were, why did they give us so much? And was that considered or have conditions changed from the permit issuance? Then we'll come into that. I don't know what the right terminology is, but we need a proposal from whoever a hydraulic engineer is to revisit the current conditions at Bridgetown relative to the amount of effluent they're putting into that conservation area. And how close that came, how close is the actual to the design?
How do they
Because I got a
put,
feeling-
how do they put it into the conservation area? Because I walked with their manager, after the 16-inch rain we had. I walked at least half of it. I didn't see any water from there coming into our conservation area.
See, I did, because I was right, Tinkle and I.
Maybe we went the other way. I
We
came
were
from
on the
tree
road.
line.
We were in the community. We were on the road. And all of a sudden, it's no longer level. There was an 8-foot drop of elevation from their road to our conservation area. And the water was coming over there like a waterfall.
Well, all of their design, build is at 27 feet. Ours is at 23 feet. So, I mean, they're 4 feet higher everywhere. Their ponds are 4 feet higher than ours.
But if they're sending it south, we're okay with that.
Well, that's what I wonder. I don't know.
That's the part I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know
If
either.
all of their affluent was supposed to go south, no harm, no foul. But the reality is, there's a hell of a lot coming to us. And now, I'll take your word for it.
I wish I had seen that, because that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, well, that is what we saw. Now, I just don't
No,
know.
where were you when you saw that?
I'm standing on the road. We rode out there in a truck.
What road are you talking about?
A bridge tower. We were in the community.
Okay,
And we were on the Macadam Road next to the conservation area. And there was a definite drop. You say 4 feet, I would have thought 5 or 6
Yeah.
or whatever. But the real problem was the cascading water. Now, if it was supposed to go south, we wouldn't have got it. That's all. And someone to look at that and see. if it's still-
I would like to see.
Especially because there, you know, what is our potential liability if this continues? If there's going to be, if this volume of water is going to be washing out preserve areas, do we stand any, is there any risk?
From that point of view, I was just thinking, Bridgetown was dry and they're flooding. We want to divert more of their water
Yeah.
south into the system that they currently have, because it could hit.
The next time you're gonna look at that, I'd like to go and see where it is.
Is it the berm on the back of the golf course?
I beg your pardon?
Is it the berm that's on the back of the golf course between the communities?
Yeah, there's a berm back there. That's what I walk, but I never saw any water going
No, the
on.
one I'm looking at is beyond the golf course into Bridgetown property.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's where I was, in Bridgetown, and I walked with their manager. I
I
didn't
don't
even,
even know how to describe it, but I can walk
Yeah.
somebody and show them somebody far.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
That way I know what we're trying to get at.
I'd like to go too.
I just want to know what the design was and it's built.
The weirs, we had them down as far as they could and
They did
did great. And not to just the two homes that weren't even close. that
No,
flooded.
no, we didn't have any
But
flooding.
the
at
other
all.
thing that you gotta realize that the two, the Palazzo and, the roads outside of you, that usually have water standing in them.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot.
Viadana, because of the fact we were able to lower the thing, they were able to drain. Because before, because they are lower, again, no, they're, what would that be? Lower than,
They're high. I mean,
well, they won't drain if the pond's full,
correct.
those drains.
When the weir's up, it's a cork.
Yeah,
So
Uh,
I have another question. I wonder why before a major storm event does the whole community continue to irrigate? Because
Okay.
there's water going, well, I mean, rain is pouring and we got water going and, you know, it's already saturated. We're just adding more water to potentially flood us.
Yeah.
How do we stop
We have an
that?
answer for that.
I don't think he has anything to do with
What,
it.
we all do.
I think there's a master, you could turn, there's one
Well,
place
that's what
where
I
the
wonder.
water, you
Is there
could turn,
not a place?
you
we
could turn it
just
off in
turn
one
it
place
off?
and stop it.
I don't.
I mean, you know,
Can't get any water to the roads because we have to take the water.
we
No,
get
no, he's talking about the irrigation of the grass.
That's what I'm talking
of
about.
the grass.
But Gateway is required to use so many.
Required to
people's
use-
feet.
Oh.
And I think we might be in that same boat. I'm not sure.
We're almost in that boat, but we were going.
I'd have to
to
ask
the
Bill.
City
I'm
for
not sure.
water.
It's a good question.
I mean, it's crazy.
All right,
Like,
Yeah,
we'll go to B, the cleaning of the pond interconnect. Last year, we did some inspection of the interconnect pipes. And these are the pipes between the ponds that allow us to do self-leveling. That keeps us from, from water from one pond goes to the other, eventually out through the flowway and exited the communities. They have not really been cleaned or since Never.
Never.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Never. No, that is accurate
We
too.
weren't even aware of.
So the inspections identified a
Right.
number of interconnects that need to be,
Right.
that need
So,
service.
so what we were able to do is the contract is with, Extreme Divers. We were able, and if you looked at the contract, it's in here, it shows you that we were able to piggyback on, Gateway did this last year, wasn't it? And we were able to get the same rate for size of the pipe and the per foot. We got the same rate in the competitive bid, that Gateway did. So we did not have to go to bid because it went to bid and we got the same rate. So if you look, the contract shows, there's a separate sheet in there that shows how many feet of pipe by diameter, and it shows the price that we were charged, and it's the same price that Gateway is charged.
And have they been cleaned up?
No,
Oh.
this is the cleanup.
They were cleaned about 7 years ago, because I remember
No.
them coming through and we had a leak in one of ours.
Yeah.
And they fixed that.
We did all the interconnect piping. We did none of the interconnect balancing boxes. They're kind of separate. It
And-
wasn't a stormwater. It
And
it doesn't collect stormwater.
And
It
if,
just collects water to keep pond A equal to pond B.
and Joe, there might have been some inspections that were done before the turnover.
Yeah. I was involved.
You know what I'm saying, before the turnover?
There was.
I would think there was. I would think there probably was.
I was involved with
But-
that turnover.
But this is the contract that is in place, that will be in place if we approve it, to do that interconnect, pipe cleaning. And some of those pipes are big enough to actually go in them.
Probably like look at them every 5 years, 6
Yeah.
years.
Well, this one is now, and it's 100, and the exact number is 105. You got 105 and some change $1,000 to do that.
If you got two ponds that are supposed to level and one's 6 feet higher than the other, you got a problem.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. What will we see how much debris comes out? The inspection showed these, and we aren't doing them all. We're just doing the one that the inspection said needed clean.
Well, that's the way to do it. Inspect them and then
Right.
clean one.
We saved a lot of money by doing that with the street drains, where we inspect them and only cleaned the ones that had debris in them.
What
we
is
did-
the average size of the interconnect?
Well,
They vary?
48
They vary.
inches.
yeah. Oh, well, it's in
They're
the,
big.
I think it's in the contract.
They're large. They
They're-
range from 36 up.
So yeah, it's the same size as the
Could-
drain coming out of 530,
18, 24, 36, 48, 54.
all over the place.
Yeah, they range all
And
over.
we have one that's 84 down by,
Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept that contract.
I accept, I second it.
Okay.
All in
Let's have
favor?
a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Four.
No opposed?
Which item was that?
That was item B, I'm sorry, B.
8B.
Okay, C, we've completed the bank restoration. What's that there in brown like that? We
I
have,
missed you, Daniel.
yeah, we have the.
Misery loves company.
We have the PCO 3, a PCO, they called it, I think they called it 3, but it's one PC change order that they requested for 10,000. It's the exact number, 900 and some dollars, 998, something like that. This is a
Yeah.
change order, when you do stuff with a bid process, a formal bid process, this is one I would not have paid. The CDD authorized this PCO. And it was because the contract did not have the interconnect pipes between the homes in it when the bid came out.
They were found on site while doing the project, and it wasn't scoped in the original contract
Yeah,
amount,
but-
so.
They had all the documents, but the documents that they were given was before they started, but they were not in the bid specs. So when they bid their price, they weren't there. Okay? Even though they knew about it before the project started, but was after they already had bid.
price you pay for a new bid.
Yeah.
Our historic bidder do it.
But they also came back for, I think, requested over $20,000 for the hurricane.
And that got shot down.
And that got shut down because the
Because
bid specs. See, I would have
That's over
personally,
their plate.
I would have personally gave them more. I would have given them some money for the hurricane. And maybe not given them any money for, but because of the bid process, the bid excluded the hurricane. And we had to pay for the interconnect, but for the pipe between the home. And that was cheaper than the hurricane.
But you're in agreement to pay it.
Well, yeah, it's already been paid.
Like, make a vote.
So we still have to approve it. Okay.
Do we have
Just to
to?
be ratified,
Yeah.
right?
All right, can I have a motion to say, I don't know exactly what it will say, the fact that we've already paid.
To proceed.
That this, we're ratifying the fact that it's already been paid and we would have approved it. Okay?
I make
Thank
a
you,
motion
Jim,
to
the one that
ratify
didn't
the
want to pay it the
thing
most.
after-
No,
What?
I don't know about the most, because me and Adam fought, their project manager for
Yeah.
CMB Civil fought pretty heavily about rework based on the time that they had selected, even though I had advised it to either execute earlier before the rainy season had happened. And all the rework that they came back and asked for more money for, I said, absolutely not. You were given the contract and you knew the terms.
You think they'll bid again?
He said.
I
he
think they
would.
will. For them, it was a learning curve for us using a new vendor here on this side, but on that side of the house, it was also new for them, doing that approach and that type of work. So it was a learning curve for them as well.
I don't think they will. Adam said he would, but I've not heard anything more. I think he's also depressed about having to be on the hook for when the water goes low to see what the pond looks like underneath
Yeah,
the warranty.
He probably wants to see what
He
his
just-
total liability is
36
before he.
done, move on.
Yeah, because he's got liability with the warranty.
You know, but we'll see in a couple months.
When the
All
water
right,
goes
Hopefully-
low.
I
hopefully it's
second
good.
that motion.
Okay, vote
Okay, I,
on PCO. All right. 4-0. All right.
8D.
8D, pond restoration discussion. I think we've talked a lot about this. I'm looking at the fact that we're having Tetra Tech, come up with the specs for this,
Let me help you with this.
but I'm for the
Okay.
quick bid, I'm gonna call it the
Would you
quick
like
bid,
to tell us
please.
how you have this
No,
discussion?
no, absolutely.
I'd be happy to
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah,
This affects,
Here is 10,000 feet view. Historically, this group has gone out, taken known providers, showed them what we want done. They submit proposals to do it, and we approve it the way it goes. We're trying to put more discipline in the processes at the district. And some of those processes evolved to the point where some of our contracts got quite lengthy and in much greater detail and had requirements that we historically have not done. Is that a fair way to say that, Dan?
It is.
So in other words, when instead of having a proposal of 6 pages, some of these went to 48 and more pages. Some of our historic vendors got these contracts or proposals and said, I'm gonna pass. Okay, so that is what led to how we got a new contract on this one. That's just perspective. Going in the future, the district staff and the attorney and the engineers, we are all working to get a much abbreviated type of package for those contracts, I will say this properly, that are under $195,000 and are repair, restoration, not construction,
Maintenance.
maintenance. repair.
good.
It's maintenance repair, so
His words, that's right.
for the words
It's
matter
important.
in
It's
this one,
important.
right? So to stay competitive with CCNA regulations, the threshold, that $, that,
Under $195,000.
yes. $195,000, it can be looked at as a maintenance of the lake and not a reconstruction of the lake.
But we can still use capital reserve.
Oh, we can use that. if
You can use whatever, however you want to pay it. It's keeping it underneath the dollar threshold based on the lake bank restoration that you're trying to do at under maintenance, not.
So the
Right.
takeaway for
Not
the group,
rebuilding.
the takeaway for this group is in the future, make sure I say this problem. You can go out to a future site, you might want to do something. And have a couple of 3 vendors present to look at it and say, I want to go from that point to that point. And then they cannot have formal bid process
Yes.
that they'll turn in. They'll give us either quotes or whatever the. Proposals.
With all the costs that's entailed with that.
Yeah,
Process.
they'll bear that cost.
Right.
But it'd be a whole lot simpler and it'll be much quicker.
Maybe cheaper.
And cheap.
Well, here's what drove it all.
Yeah.
We thought that we could have done 36 for $190,000.
Yeah.
We had a proposal from a contractor. But because of the formality and the complexities of our process,
They dropped out.
that went to 300,000. And then we added another 65,000 to get an engineering evaluation study or whatever. So we spent 365,000 to do something we could have done for 190. So we're trying to figure that out.
Understand you still need to have CEI done on,
Right.
on these,
Yeah,
to have an engineer involved and
But it
it
won't be the formal 65.
won't be a formal bid
Much abbreviated.
process.
Right.
It'll be an informal proposal request, invitation to give proposals, or quote. And that'll keep you from having to do the formal packet that goes through the review, the committees, the whole nine on that.
And
one.
the good news is we're working
It should streamline
cooperatively
it.
and collaboratively with the district and staff.
And
Make that
Tetra
happen.
Tech, and Tetra Tech.
All the constituents.
Right.
We are no longer demanding they do it a certain rigid way.
Yeah.
So we expect to get benefits from that.
So-
And
I will
the Jerry
caveat that.
project On like 47, that may, if we can reduce those costs, give us more money to work on more projects.
Now, you can't war game the system here. You can't look at pick a pond and say, I want to do to this dollar sign under this project. And then turn around on the other side of that lake and say, I want to do another project to do the rest of what I.
Well, you'll
wanna do."
keep us
You
up.
can't, you can't war game it
Yeah.
like that because that will,
One pond
cross-
to be one and then another. pond
Yes.
to be another.
Yeah, I think this is,
That's a
what,
great idea, but we had never thought. of it.
no, look, I understand because.
if
You
we
know,
do,
prior to this, I was the director of engineering for Pinellas County, and we had the same thresholds, and give or take. Design had a certain threshold, construction had a different threshold, maintenance had a different threshold. Different types of services rendered under service provider agreements had different thresholds too, from what we had to put on the streets to do a formal bid on. Those rules apply across the board. It's still Florida. That's what I was trying to drive at when I first got here. I was like, what are our thresholds? Because we've added too much boilerplate to the overall technical specifications and our jargon that we put in our contracts. And I think we've done a good job of starting to weed that down to the bare minimums in those categories. And versus it was all clumped together for everything beforehand. And with this, there's still legal ramifications. Like I said, there's things you can't do, and that's one of them. You can't say, okay, pond 36, I'm gonna do up to that dollar threshold underneath one project ID number, and then I'm gonna do the rest
Right.
of what I wanna do underneath
Right.
another project ID
We
number.
gotta do it legally.
So that keeps you honest up front. If you go
Right.
into understanding that.
But we'll no longer require, for instance, everybody wear the same type of uniform. Oakland, whenever his kids put on in the morning, we didn't care.
Cowboy hat.
We knew what they were, yeah, cowboy hats. So we're gonna streamline. It's a work in progress.
Okay.
That's all I want to.
I just want to say that I believe that where we're at right now, we're supposed to approve a Tetra Tech task authorization at this meeting. I believe that the task authorization should request to start the process in 3 different ponds. Okay, and one of them, if you go to the list, 43, because it's a large one, 47 and 48. Okay, we start the process with those 3 ponds. Because
Not
I,
54,
what?
not 54.
They're 2 large ponds. We
Okay,
couldn't
can't do
afford,
2 large.
we couldn't afford to do 2 large ponds. We might find out when we get into this that we can't do 43. Not because of money, but because of the 195. Okay, and that might need a formal bid process. And if it needs a formal bid process, we're already screwed. Don't put that, no. But we
Well, look at
are.
that linear feet
But
already.
we're not gonna be able to get that done in dry season. We're smart enough to know the processes causes problems, the formal bid process, and it takes
Take
longer.
time.
Yes,
So
because we're looking to have something done this dry season. We can't lose another
That's
year.
right, we're
And
we're
I-
in the dry season.
and I know,
getting there.
and I know 47 and 48. I
Well,
already
that's
know
so,
those
yeah.
2 ponds will be less than 190. Okay? Pond 43, I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be right there around 210, something around that. And I'm not gonna say, well, if it comes under 190, we could do it. No, it's gonna be so much per foot, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be over our threshold or the no bid or the condensed bid process. So at least I would like to put together a task authorization to look at the 3 ponds.
And then you can make decisions accordingly.
Yes,
And if you can do them in the abbreviated process, which I'll call
there'll be higher priority.
it, then if you need extra money, you can go to them and get some extra money for 1 year and it comes back off the next. That's a great process.
Okay.
The other thing is, keep in mind, guys, that Gateway is still waiting on doing some projects from 21 and 22 because of high water marks and things like that. They've got a backlog of projects that they can't get done because we haven't had dry season. And I want to get into that boat. The more flexible and nimble we are, the better we are.
And
The biggest factor you need to really look at when you're selecting your ponds, I understand prioritization based off of the way that they look, right, and how they've been assessed. But understanding pumping down may be a factor. That was a reason why we went back for pond 36, was to be able to incorporate pump down procedures, to be able to get that lake down to a level that you could
And
do.
that really worked well.
And it did, well,
and no way,
at the end.
no way.
At the second time, look,
The second time, the second time.
Second time.
and you know what? They changed means and methods on me in a flash. And then when they realized that they were liable,
A new vendor, that's how
they,
yeah.
They changed methods fast to go a different way and with a different project manager, let's be
yes,
honest.
they did.
They got rid of the project manager to put that thing over the road. And that caused them that caused us all a lot of problems.
After Doug directed traffic for 5 hours.
Nah, well, you have to do what you have to do.
Okay, so how long do you think that'll take to do that? Oh, you gotta make the motion.
Yeah, well, I want a motion to look at all 3 ponds. I want a motion that we're going to look at 43, 47, and 48. And ask Tetra Tech to do a task authorization. And it's probably gonna be more than the 5K, that not to exceed, because they were looking at 1 pond. But it might be it's 10, because the 2 ponds are about the same thing. But I'd like a motion that we look at all 3, getting the process started at all 3 ponds. So we can.
15,000.
All right, now I'll go with that.
I so move.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor? Aye.
And I just want you to know, Joe, we didn't change the prioritization because you were here. That's the prioritization that was on the list.
Understand that. I appreciate it. You have done, this is the best operating committee. You've done a great job. I just have preached on it and my mouth shut.
All right,
And we appreciate.
well, you know what they say, Joe? You know what they say in sales? I was in sales my whole life, is once you get the order, you shut the hell up.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we're done with D.
Yeah.
Let's go to E.
There's a couple pictures in here. Pond 31 is actually a very big pond, that from a problem standpoint.
Oh, yeah, small water volume, but
Yeah, that the homeowners complain almost,
more than scope, leave it at that.
yeah, yes.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one,
Thank God, I love that.
No, there's only one person who complains.
yes.
Yeah, but she has 4 or 5 people behind her.
Yeah, so I just have a picture in there. Bob wrote a very nice
Yeah,
letter to the
thank you.
lady, and to more than the one that we addressed. Actually, there's a picture in here. It's actually better than it looks. There's a little bit of dead stuff there on the bank. This is that basic because they spray the littorals. They keep the bank, the littorals not more than 5 to 6 feet. It kills them and they end up washed up. The wind, Joe, like
They look
yours,
bad.
they pull in here, but they will decay. This is just, but this
will
pond,
decay.
she said it was 20 foot across and there was no water in the middle. That's her no. And, you can see it's not that way. This one, go down, one more.
This was 30.
And she did that from Massachusetts.
31.
She did that
Yes,
from Massachusetts.
remotely.
She wasn't even here.
Yes,
She was,
the storm shutters were there when I walked by. It's like, oh,
this,
yeah.
this is pond 55. And
Okay.
the Solitude stepped up to this, had a large algae bloom. You were,
Oh, that was that.
that was the
yeah.
one with
Was that the golf course?
Yeah.
Yes,
Fertilization?
when they redid the bank,
not officially.
but when they redid the golf course with that whatever that method is, where they chop up the sod and blow it out there. They put a lot of fertilizer on it, washed into this pond and killed all the fish. And they had large algae bloom. Within a week, Solitude had cleaned it out and you wouldn't know if there was any problem.
Solitude did it, they were nice and responsive. Resident complained about dead fish, smelled god
Smells
awful.
horrible.
And there was fish up to that size all along, all around, golf course side, both sides. Golf course was aware of it. Went out, Solitude came out, did oxygen tests, and their feeling was that it was based on an algae bloom. Algae then dies, oxygen gets eaten up, fish die. Even though the bubblers were all working as they had done. The only thing that was different is that the golf course on the other side was one of the ones that they had just killed and were regrowing grass. A lot of fertilizer involved. We had a lot of rain. So
Perfect storm.
it was just and it was a yet another hot summer. So the ponds are all baking hot. This one had some littorals, not, it's a little more immature. I think it's been coming back since the contractor ceased and desist on their treatments for quite a while. And I have a meeting next week, which will coordinate with you, with Bailey, just to go over what we're looking to have, because we don't want them to spray like I believe is what happened before, where we had a lot of ponds with no littorals. Once they stopped, all of a sudden stuff starts growing. And I says, this is what, we want this. Not all the people who live on the ponds want it, but it's something that it's for the health of the ponds, the health of the infrastructure is what we need to do. Plus, it's the rules of
I think we've had areas
Yeah, Florida.
since 2011. This is the first time we've had a fish kill.
right.
But it wasn't.
I know. But I mean,
But
we used to have routinely before that. We had routine fish kills.
Well, as soon as you start pumping nitrogen and phosphorus down into the fertilizer, it's gonna get down into the groundwater and transition into the lake that's nearest to it.
But we've been
Will
able to
create
handle the volumes we've been putting in because of aeration. This is the first time we had it.
Yeah. So, but it was probably a combination of the conditions with the heat, a lot of rain, just washing a lot of it into it in a short period of time. Like I said, the perfect storm. But I was very pleased with their responses and their advice. So I'm glad that went away. Pond 31, the first pond. That is a very small pond over in Tiberio. It's been a problem it's shallow. So the narrow end, which is in question, does tend to get it. We have had it treated, Bob, a number of years ago. I met out there and we had it spray right. So all those littorals were sprayed out of that end of the bank. And that did the trick. So now we'll work with the contractor to make sure that they maintain a 6-foot bank in the area so it doesn't meet the other side that borders Pelican Preserve Boulevard. When we spray stuff dies and floats. If it rains, it goes away faster. We're not going in and scraping it out in spite of Doug's best efforts of doing that.
Down there with your net again.
Yeah.
Other people think we're trying. The next meeting, we have one set up now. Let's see where, I just don't have that right in front of me. But I might need to move it up if we're going to do something, if Tetra Tech can come back with some information to progress the bank restoration so we can look at the 3 ponds and see, to make some decisions. All we did here today was decide that we want to gather the specs from Tetra Tech on the 3 ponds.
I say, once they have that provided back, we should move, because for scheduling, they really need to be able to get this going
Yeah.
for a February, March timeframe before we go back into a wet season.
No, we're, at the meeting, we'll have to decide, do we use the method you used on the last pond that, Extreme Divers did? Or do we stay with coconut mesh? Okay, we need to talk about that, that type of thing. We've not had problems with coconut mesh in the past. But 36, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, was the problem the vendor or was the problem the design?
I've got my own opinions on that one. I think
I would
you're
like to-
correct. I think we need to look at our means and methods on how we go about doing this. I think the big issue with how we did 36 was the fact that we pulled and recovered soil from the pond itself. And I don't think you got compaction rates that you were intended to get to.
And
Some
then one
areas were
side-
very silty.
Very silty, very, I mean, it was perk sand. What they were pulling up was the equivalent of perk sand, is what you would put in a septic tank that allows things to drain at such a quick rate. And with weather being what it was in the time, again, another perfect storm of events that happened. You have perk sand trying to dry on the lake bank, compacting, getting coconut mesh on it, and then trying to stabilize. And we
And
weren't
the
able to
what?
stabilize it with weather hitting every other
And,
time.
and
I
the
turn
one
around.
side had much more clay.
Yep.
And held up a lot better.
Some
And the
areas-
other side, when they dredged, was, like you say, the silt.
And I think it very much depends on where the houses sit on their plats, because on one side of 36, you had a very long run up to the houses,
Yeah.
much more so than where on the other side. And then where everybody had built pool cages and things like that, and had changed probably the slope coming off the backside of their properties. So a more gentle slope on one side of a property with a less compaction rate, not as many runoffs or rills created by weather events versus the other side. So am I a fan of pulling things out of the lake? I think that we should definitely look at what that
Right.
bottom control, that base control looks like in the middle of the lakes. But trying to get it to compact after is
Yeah.
an absolute nightmare. So
To save the money.
Right, so there was
You
a
might need to
bit of
bring in
a
some
learning
oil.
curve on
But
that.
you need to bring in some soil, and what I've seen so far, because I've seen some of the pricing that was done on your pond.
Mhm.
It isn't that much different than coconut mesh. Now, it's a lot of difference between when they did Armor Max way back when. And this is more dirt and rock mixed together in some type of special formula. If you listen, that he calculates in his bedroom.
I honestly, the coconut mesh, I don't see it as being a problem. I just think that maybe bringing in more soil so you can get the compaction rates that you need.
Right. The only thing with the coconut mesh, and that we gotta make sure is that littorals can grow on the other method. Because you guys don't care as much about littorals as we do, at least in the past you have.
Comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you done with that conversation?
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I did go in and archive the old tickets in our ticketing system. Cleaned out, we only have like another 7 or 8 that were still in process. The ones from 2023 that, I swear to God, Solitude never does their thing. We might want to talk to them about that, because they just never close them out. But I just made judgment calls on it. Got rid of them.
Well, if they do their job well, there's not a lot of tickets issued. So, you know,
That's
which, and I think communicating is
And
probably,
what we expanded.
as long as they know what we expect
three
and we're
ponds.
watching, I think they know that they, you know,
Thank you.
I tried to
John.
think of.
well, yes. But just one last thing, I've been working with Doug the last week or two, breaking down some of the functions that our group works on, trying to take some of the tasks off of Doug. I know he gets a lot of, all the tickets and all that, a lot of it routes to Doug. And there's a lot involved. So, there's a ponds aeration and fountains. Doug had been doing the fountains. So Jay Nemi is going to be picking up maintenance of the fountains, pond aeration. So the big fountains as we enter here, but also the fountains right at the entrance into the community. And as I explained to him, it's really just in your travels, you know, this way, every Tom, Dick and Harry is not submitting tickets. Now there's 8 tickets because, we're all seeing the same
There's
thing.
a lot of.
And it just, it just makes extra work for everybody. So, and that's kind of trying to have it where people who are volunteering, that they have a role and something that they can learn about and put forward suggestions. So Jay is going to be doing that. Audette, storm drains, interconnect, and fish crates, because I know the fish crates also have to be maintained.
And we are looking at trying to transfer fish grades over to Rich with the fish, since he's doing this stocking, but he hasn't done stocking for a while. We got to get that going.
But I think that's because that's all tied in with the interconnects. The contractor is going to be the same contractor.
Okay.
So it may be something that is an easier task to be done all together. Mike, you're a person with weirs, appreciate it.
So weird.
Weird
Harold Begnew, I probably botched his name, is doing conservation areas. Doug is going to continue doing the downspout bubblers because he was so involved with the downspouts when they all got installed through the community. He'd be he just knows what's been done and what needs to be done. Rich Hennessy was fish. We've asked him to look at fish stocking and fishing areas because fish only have, it's catch and release, but they last a certain amount of time. I'd rather know if we're starting to get low, what we need to do to keep a fish stock up. First, it also helps maintain the bugs, sucking the larvae up. So he's conceded to do that. Ed's staying with the GIS. And that's kind of it. Everybody else's was the same. We have, Lynn and I are watching over, new Pelican, old Pelican pond inspections. We have the pond inspectors and the water testing team. So, but that's, we've reached out. We're trying to get some people furthering their knowledge on the different tasks. So first they, you learn something, you feel more valuable,
Participating.
we know that they know that their roles are appreciated.
Everyone was very pleased. And Joe, you were right. We didn't get as much rain, but everyone was very pleased with how the hurricanes has weathered. And I noticed the difference in Palazzo, in Viadana with the water in the streets. There was not the water in the streets that usually is there. It came up, but it came back down because the pond 36 was going down.
I have a question for you. Do you have any idea how much 12 or 6 inches of rain that we would get in Pelican Preserve increases the level of the ponds? I heard a statistic on that, and it was about 5 to 6 inches of rain raises our ponds about 1 foot. I think that's an interesting thing to
Yeah.
know.
I think we could look at that, Joe, but the issue is you got all these street drains that all go into these ponds. You got the conservation area that goes into ponds. That's one of the problems with
Well,
your
that's why
pond, is you got that big
It's
conservation
a
area.
multiplier effect.
It's a multiple, it's not just the square feet of the pond. You got that big conservation area and it all goes into that pond.
The streets.
And then the street drains
Yeah.
all go into
A
that pond.
general number that would give you an idea for
Yeah.
predicting, 12 inches of rain, and you can say, gee whiz, that could be maybe a 2 foot.
But that could depend on the flowway. If the flowway is low enough and the weirs are low, the ponds will drain faster.
Well, I
But-
thought about it once you used a comment, and I don't have any idea what it means. The control level, is the control level of 23 feet?
It's
What's the
control level.
Control level is based off of each pond.
Yeah.
Each pond has its own control level, which is, what is it? It's steady state added under normal conditions and weather standards, where it stays. And there's like a plus or minus 1 foot on both sides of that.
I know when
The
they,
understanding from years ago, Streets, conveyance of
Okay.
properties, that the years were all set so all pond levels in Pelican were the same. Is that true?
No.
Mine got this.
The rain can be regional.
Well, it can be reachable.
One part of Pelican can get 2 inches of rain, the other is next to nothing. And it takes a while for that to be able to, level
All
out.
I can say
They
is that
flow
each-
out different directions.
Exactly.
If you're the first pond in the flow system, it's going to lower slower than the one next to the flowway.
each control level is dependent on the pond. It's based on how it was designed. Granted, things shift over time with wear and tear, but as it's designed, the control level is set when they actually build these man-made lakes.
And Joe, when they
The
keep,
year is not adjustable, and that's going to govern the level of the pond. They're just fixed concrete weirs there.
they go to the interconnect
They go to
pipes.
the interconnects.
And Joe, I don't know if we could calculate that. I know that when they did the survey, the survey knew where the control level was, because that's what the grass and stuff like that needed to be down to. So the survey people came in to create that. And like you said, it's not the same level in every pond. But they have the documentation. When they come in to do the survey, they mark that with stakes. So the contractor doing the restoration knows that type of stuff.
Because from one side of the neighborhood to the other side of the neighborhood, your elevations that you start at for building are completely different.
Yeah,
So it
there are two
varies.
different ways your water goes out of Pelican.
You-
You guys.
I'm gonna say
use
your next
the term
agenda.
Flow,
Yeah.
control flow rate or control level. And I was trying to figure out what that meant, and I assumed that meant that the flowway went up above the pond level, therefore the water would not be flowing out of the ponds. And in fact, it could actually be flowing into the ponds. Is that what that meant?
I don't know.
No.
I have not seen the water except
Well, like, in a low water condition, if the flowway had a higher volume, the ponds would level out. You know, if one was smaller and shallower, has a lot more where the water is evaporating, its neighboring pond may be backflowing in just to maintain, you know, a certain level between them.
Are they all interconnected?
They're all interconnected except for the one that we get our irrigation.
38. That's why.
38
don't
in
put it on it.
irrigation, both of them. Next agenda will include the Tata Tetra Tech
Yep.
report and the priorities, and see what ponds we can do.
Got it.
It's probably going to be one large one or two small ones, unless we go with some form of capital. That in the past, PPAC is not I think the only thing about we've done capital for has been for the roads and the boardwalk.
I'd be curious to see what
But it
their
doesn't-
EOPC is
You can't change
on
it.
those engineering probably costs.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
if you wanna do some analysis for us and come give us a thing on the, anything you can with the amount of rain and stuff like that, it'd be helpful.
Do some research on it.
Okay, and you
I'm
can
gonna
present here.
Try to calculate how many square feet of property I lost into the pond.
You're gonna need a survey with
That's
pins
a
on that
pretty
one.
easy calculation.
They'll do that though. When they come in to do the survey, Joe, the survey will, and that's when you're bringing in the maybe dirt and fill and stuff like that to rebuild stuff.
Well,
And because the survey will tell us what we need to do.
I can tell you what I've done. I went and got some littorals from the pond on the other side of the street with my neighbors. I know I'm not supposed to do that. And
Did they live?
I planted them 6 months ago and they're doing fantastic. The thing I learned was I got some of the muck that came up with them.
Yeah.
And I planted them in that muck. My pond is all sand. And when the littorals were planted, I truly went out and I looked at them every day and they just washed out of the ground. I never saw a fish live. You may have. I don't even know when those.
During the meeting.
Guys,
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, Joe.
Okay.
Hey, Daniel. All right. Are you glad you're not with Pelican County right Pretty hard. All right.
I was running the utilities department. I was running their emergency operations center for.
I'm glad he
Not
settled
it would
down.
be.
When Ian
I'm
hit,
glad he
and
settled
he came
down a
down
little
here and
bit.
hit Fort Myers
And
Beach,
that's,
and I dodged that
we're
one,
not
and
getting
then I
sued
kind
or
of feel like,
something.
on the flip side, I
Well,
dodged.
he's already read that.
So
Yeah.
apparently I'm a good luck charm.
All right, you're in the right
And
place.
supposedly, Bob said it was
How
all
long
under
ago was
control. Bob went
No.
on. And he said it was all under
2 years
control, that he wasn't gonna bring it up again.
Because I've been with you guys here for
Yeah,
probably over a year now.
yeah.
If you-
You're right. Yeah.
I went on a little bit of a sabbatical. That's all, sir.
The agenda went finally for the last
The
meeting.
wife at the time was a traveling nurse, and I followed her around, and we went to Reno and California.
Those are pretty lucrative.
Yeah, they are.
They've got docs doing the same thing, and I mean, since I've retired, many of them ask me to do something, and I'm like, I'm happy where I am. But no, they're good contracts.
At CPD, you